I'm joined now by Mark Higgie, former Australian ambassador to the European Union between the years 2014 and 2017, and now Europe correspondent of The Spectator Australia. Mark, good evening.
Good evening, and thank you for the invitation.
No, not at all. I did say a moment ago when I was talking to Goran that I felt the Australian government had some degree of egg on their faces. I'm going to go a bit further. I mean, frankly, it seems to me that it's the weak man trying to play tough, realising that, frankly, it's not going to work, realising there would be outrage if, after what the judge said this morning, that Novak had been rearrested. I mean, Scott Morrison, I put it to you, Scott Morrison has made a complete and utter mess of all of this.
Well, look, I would agree with much of what you've said. I do think the way he's been treated is a disgrace. I think he deserves an apology. He followed all the rules in the way he went about applying to go to Australia. Despite all the blame shifting, the Australian government issued him with a visa. That should mean that he has entry into Australia, rather than this rather odd arrangement, I'm afraid, we have, where being issued with a visa isn't enough. You then need to meet separate entry requirements, according to the minister. But Australia's reputation in this matter has been rescued to an extent, as you indicated, by the decision of the federal court judge this morning, and who drew attention, I must say, to in addition to what he thought was the incorrect decision, but the somewhat shabby treatment that he received on arrival at Melbourne Airport. So the great hope, I think the minister would be mistaken to attempt to cancel his visa on a second occasion. I think if you're in a hole, you stop digging, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I do understand why some Australians would be upset. I think the word exemption perhaps raised a few hackles amongst people. But, you know, the country's been locked down again and again and again, and in some states, lockdowns have happened after only a tiny outbreak of cases. So I do understand why there was some public anger. But, Mark, can I ask you a question? You know, we all think growing up of Australia as being this amazing, free country with incredible weather. I've never thought of Australia as being a tough, authoritarian country, but it seems to me, over the course of the last few years, that's what it's become. Where is modern Australia going?
Well, look, firstly, the positives in terms of what Australia's done for the past couple of years. Yes, the lockdowns have been very tough, but the death toll has been very, very low by global standards. Australia got off to a very efficient start in terms of stopping the spread of the vaccine, and that shows up in those figures. And also, the other very positive thing to be said about Australia's performance is that after a slow start, the vaccine rollout has been very fast and very efficient. So Australia has done well in those areas. But yes, it has to be said that after the initial stages of Australia's response, the country slid into a sort of a zero COVID mentality, which has resulted in, frankly, all sorts of crazy stuff. Cities and states locked down in response to a handful of cases. Australians like me not being able to go back to Australia, and Australians not being able to leave Australia. These were very authoritarian, practically unprecedented measures, if you look around the world. So yes, we have performed positive things, but I agree it's gone on too long, and I'm afraid that this latest episode is very much on the negative side of the ledger.
And finally, Mark, you've got elections coming up in March. How big an issue is Djokovic going to be in those elections, in your opinion?
Well, I think you put your finger on it, Nigel, when you said, people do react badly about when it comes to any perception that people who are in the elite get special treatment compared to ordinary people. And we see that here in this country, of course. We've seen lots of upset about, when the people involved in the G20 and the COP26 jamborees and Hollywood celebrities somehow avoid the queues and the bureaucracy involved. But and I think it would be unfortunate to mix up the Djokovic case with that very legitimate area of concern. This is a separate issue of overzealous bureaucrats and ministers being, I think, grossly unfair to Novak Djokovic, who, as I said, followed all the rules. There will be a division of opinion. There will be some people who stick to the view that somehow this is easy treatment of elite people, and others who see the injustice in all this. And could I just add one extra thought, and that is that I was watching with great interest your interviews with Serbian friends there. I know Serbia very well. My first diplomatic posting was in Belgrade, probably before Novak Djokovic was born. But I think one thing that can definitively be said is that this has got nothing to do with any kind of vendetta against Novak Djokovic personally, or anything to do with Serbia or anything like that. We have nothing but friendship with Serbia and huge admiration for Novak Djokovic. This, as I said before, is a case of overzealous ministers and bureaucrats getting into a mess, frankly, which they should try and withdraw from as soon as they can.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mark, thank you for your very frank comments. Thank you very much indeed.